necesito más. Te crees mucho, lo sé. O bien que te digo, sé. Pero hay más en Instagram. Si tú no quieres, bebé, tengo filas hasta 3. No te necesito más. Te crees mucho, lo sé. O bien que te digo, sé. Pero hay más en Instagram. Te crees bella de lo que eres, pero en el mundo lo que a mujeres más me la creía. Hasta ese día que me engañaste, ¿qué más?
Reciclaba amores y estabas tú. Te necesito.
Going out my mind. Give me some directions to get to you. To get to you. Ain't gonna waste my time. I know that we got connection. I think about you. You're on my mind. On my mind. On my mind. Yeah. I'm going out of my mind. Out of my mind. Out of my mind. Yeah. For you, my love. You drive me crazy, tell me what to do, what to do. I'm on my knees, yeah, I am begging you, begging you. I'll break the rules if it will get me to you.
Hey guys, you already know it's Friday. 60 is the new 40, and you know who's here. It is Gerald. Gerald, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on, Chris? How are you?
I am outstanding. I'm telling you, this is like summer is approaching, and I know everybody, I keep telling them, you better catch up with these live episodes because we only have, I think, like 4 more weeks of live recordings, and then it's over. I think 4 or 5. I think it's 4 or 5, and then that's it. Right. You guys have to watch replays for the summer. So you guys better be catching Gerald and the rest of the cast on 5S to Love Live for the next 6 weeks, because after that, we will be on replay. So Gerald, our conversation tonight, I'm excited about it.
Yeah, same here.
You know, honestly, when you look at big picture, a lot of us are getting married later in life. Mm-hmm. And when we get married later in life, I don't even want to call it baggage. What would you call it?
Ooh, that's a good question. Hey, just stick with baggage. How about that? Because some baggage should be unpacked. You can help them unpack. A lot of people
unpack baggage.
Some people look at baggage as being a negative.
Yeah,
some things just need someone to help you unpack them. That's all.
And that's a really great way to look at it, because I think that's true. You know, there's different ways of looking at the situation of getting married after 50, between 55 and 65. There's some different life situations, you know. And I think sometimes you can look at them as deal breakers. You can look at them as potential obstacles. But to be honest with you, they can add to the stress of a relationship.
Sure can. Most certainly can. Debt, they can definitely add to it.
Would you say, Gerald, speak up? I can't hear you.
That can definitely add to it. Someone being in debt, quite a bit in debt. And a little debt's not bad, but, there's good debt and bad debt. And we'll talk a little bit more about all that. So.
And, and I think, like, when you get into these relationships, I think people, what's that song, Love Will Find? What's that song by that singer talking about love can find a way through everything? Sometimes love, it's a roadblock, honey. You can't get through this.
You can't get through that one. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Because I know a really good friend of mine, I thought he was really, really great person. And the person he was dating, she was a really great person. But she had her father and he had, I think, his mother. And the parents didn't get along. So it was like, we're moving into a larger house. Correct. Ted and Martha, they was like, oh, so this is going to be my second husband. This your second husband. Like it was like, Mom, Dad, no, like we're getting together. And they were like, so they clashed. And what happened was it caused a lot of stress between the couple.
And that can happen.
It's clashed.
Yeah, that's true. That can definitely happen. It's important to make sure that you have a full relationship with the family, a decent relationship with the mother and the father. You try to, try to make sure that's a decent relationship. Fortunately, I have that right now. I created that. You created a good relationship with the family.
Right. And the other thing is too, I know, I had my kid late, but a lot of people didn't. So when you have your kid earlier in life, you have your child, then you have grandchildren and sometimes great grandchildren.
Mhm.
And I find that a lot of people are managing that complexity while they're single. And
Absolutely.
like this guy's looking at you like, why are these grandkids always here? Like I'm trying to be with you, and we got little Fifi and JoJo and Snap Snap over here. And it's like, when is our time?
Well, you know what? When you get into that type of relationship, you need to understand that right from the beginning. So if it's something that you've done when you first met, then you really can't ask me to stop that. You just kind of work yourself into it. That's my opinion about it. You just kind of work yourself into that. Or if you want an empty nest, then you need to date someone that doesn't see their grandkids as often. But someone that sees the grandkids, then your nest is really not that empty because they're spending every other weekend or spending the time with you. So be mindful of that. And those are the conversations that you need to have. Those are spending time with each other. You'll realize that, grandkids are having, certain events at school. You're there like the parent. Some grandparents are there like, just like the parents are. So, when you get involved with somebody, you need to, find that out, right from the beginning.
And the last equation, I think that a lot of people don't consider is that if you are a person in your 50s and you are with someone who has younger children, they're actually their children.
Right.
Maybe they started late, So guys, what I wanted to do is I wanted to set like the infrastructure of this conversation. So you guys, if you're just joining us, the various options or possibilities that may impact a relationship when you're 55 to 65 and you're looking at getting married, or a long-term relationship.
Yeah.
Because I'll be totally honest with you, I think me being 52, if I met someone with younger kids who were like in elementary school, I might be a little hesitant because I'll be 65 before they're out the door.
Right.
Because my kid is 21. But if I met somebody who had a kid in middle school or high school, then I might be like, oh, it's only 5 years, 6 years, before we're empty nesters. So that's an option. So
Sure.
folks, our conversation we get back tonight, we're starting, Gerald, with looking at the 20s versus, the 50s and 60s. Whole different finance conversation.
Sure.
Folks, finance conversations are hard enough already, Gerald, right?
They're very hard. So that kind of minimizes the, how many people are out there, because there are a lot of grandparents that are taking care of their kids.
Yes.
So, think about that too as well. So unfortunately, they're taking care of their kids. So the empty nest won't happen for maybe another 10 years.
For another 10 or 15 sometimes, depending on how young they are.
Exactly, depending on their age. So think about that, so before you meet someone and Prince Charming and all that, and just be very mindful that they may be taking care of the kids, their grandkids.
And that's something to think about. Guys, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we get back, we're going to start looking at, I don't know, how to even have that initial conversation. Because some people get into an argument, Gerald, from the initial start of the conversation.
Some people watching this right now probably already like, wait a minute now, they're already being hesitant about it. So.
They probably you got me watching this because of this. And she's like, no, I don't. No, I don't.
Well, tune back in. We'll talk about it.
All right, we'll be right back, guys, in a quick second.
My name is Christine Burkett, the inventor of the 5 F's to Love. This is a compatibility app. It's an app that gives you an opportunity to rate words that start with the letter F in chronological order of importance to you, to help you find your one true love, your soulmate, and the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. So after you've taken the time to rate your F's in chronological order, you send a link to the person, I don't know, you just met, or the person you've been dating for quite some time. Or maybe it's the person you've been married to for 30 to 40 to 50 years. And then you compare your top 5 F's to find out what things you have in common and things that you may perhaps need to work on. This is taking a simplistic perspective on how to find your one true love, your soulmate, the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. And thank you for downloading the 5 F's app.
Hey guys, welcome back. If you are having a problem with deciding whether or not you have met your one true love, you can always download the 5Fs to Love app on Android and Apple and see where you're compatible and then have this conversation. You might want to do that first, see if you're compatible,
Exactly.
and then have this conversation because one of the F's is finance. So you can find out where they're at.
I rolled the sleeves up, Chris. I know this was going
You
to be.
rolling them up, Gerald? Because I'm not going to go in on you. I'm just going to ask some basic questions. Okay. So look, let me pull my glasses down because now it's getting serious. I'm only kidding you. All right. So first question is, what is the difference in the financial conversation when you're in your 20s and 30s versus 55 and older? What does that look like?
In my 20s, the conversation, we weren't talking much about homes, things like that. Those type of things you weren't having those conversations. You weren't talking about child's education, when you should be, but you weren't talking about child's education, putting money aside for that. You were basically trying to survive. You're just getting out in the world, in your 20s and 30s. So those type of conversations are not really happening at that age. Probably starting a new job, not making the most money that you'll make later in life. So you're just really getting started, also getting started in a relationship, getting to know each other, first in your 20s and 30s. So it takes a little bit of time there. So, but when we hit to our 50s, 55 and 60, that conversation just totally changes now. So now all of a sudden, now you're probably making the most money you've ever made. You put, some money aside, you have a 401k, you may have some investments put aside, life insurance policy. You have a lot of things going on, at that particular age. So, meeting someone and making a decision if you're going to marry them or have a long-term relationship with your partner, then those conversations need to come into play. Those conversations sometimes can be hard conversations, but you truly need to have them to have a good relationship. I mean, I honestly feel that way. You need to talk about a life insurance policy. People don't talk about it. Are you going to be my beneficiary? If something were to happen to me, do you have money put aside for, to bury you, or money aside to, for whatever the case may be, or if I become disabled, whatever, those are the conversations you need to have. Because I put my nest egg aside. Should I be using that? If, now I need to make up the difference if something were to happen to you, or, these are the type of conversations that you should have.
So so what you're saying is the difference is the starter conversation, and by the way, folks, we're not saying you shouldn't have life insurance policies in your 20s and 30s. That's not what we're saying at all. But what you're saying is it becomes more important because at that point, the likelihood of a death impacting that relationship is more likely than somebody in their 20s. And mind you, the other thing I wanted to ask you was, in the beginning, you're right, people are just starting out, but then you got some situations where the parents may be gifting a house and then the man is in that situation. So it's like, she got the gifted house,
or I'm
marrying into this.
Right. Or he got the gifted house, one or the other.
Right.
So
but both, the tradition is the bride's family throws the wedding, pays for the wedding, and gives like a gift of some sort. So correct. I'm going based on tradition.
And they throw in the deposit, they put that, they throw in the down payment, which is great. Those are very nice gifts to receive some families. So, but that's just part of love. I mean, if you're getting together, those things happen. It's not really something you should look at. That's, like you said, tradition is,
right. But I think like in this day and age, do you think some men would be put off that the bride's parents paid for the house or a percentage of the house or down payment of the house? Would that add any potential stress on a relationship?
I don't think so. It depends on the guy. He should not, should be thankful, thankful that they put that in. And at the same time, we talked earlier about having a good relationship with the family prior, so that ties into having a good relationship with the family. So if you have a good relationship with the family, you're not looking at it that way. Dad may have put money aside for his daughter,
right,
benefit to help start the family going. That may have happened for him too as well. It's just tradition. Like I put money aside, for RJ. I put money away for those things. So if you were to get married or whatever, even though he's a male, but I still want to contribute to that. So you may put money aside for that. I've done it for the grandkids too as well. Put a little bit aside. It may not be the amount that the parents put something aside for the help.
It's something to help out.
That's correct.
Okay, so folks, that's a conversation too that I think is going to be part of our part 2 or part 3 of this, is that when you are in a relationship and you're 50 to 65, putting money away for children or grandchildren who have not gone to college or gotten married. See, this whole finance thing is bigger. So that leads into my next question.
Sure.
Like, what strategies as a finance person would you suggest couples use to determine how to combine their finances? I think a lot of people are foggy with that. Like, do I put you on my credit cards? Do I put you on my checking accounts, savings accounts, 401k, IRA, investments? Like, what does that look like?
Some people would say yes right away, but be very mindful of that and be very careful. Both your credit scores may not be the same, when you initially meet. So be
are
very
you saying
mindful.
So, Drew, let me ask you real quick, and I apologize. Are you saying that the first thing you should do, one of the first strategies, is look at your credit report? Like, what is the first thing you recommend?
That's why I brought it up. That's exactly what you need to do. I need to look at your credit report. That's going to tell me a little bit about you. That's going to tell me a little bit about your finances and actually how you've been handling your finances. My age group, you're going to look at those things. So, it's very.
Is that a deal breaker? If
it can be, somebody in the low 500 credit score, that's a wait a minute now. And that could be for a number of reasons too.
Yeah.
So be very mindful of that and consider that, if they went through a divorce or something and they end up getting most of the bills and everything put on them. So that can actually happen too as well. Now that's a whole nother conversation. And Chris, this conversation can be really big because again, did I now get all of her debt and now I meet someone else and is she going to help me pay her debt off from my past relationship or vice versa? So, it depends on the situation. You want to have that, have those deep conversations. But to get back to your initial, comment is that credit card wise, if you have an 800 credit score and someone has a 6 and they have credit cards and they put you on as an authorized user, or if they put it on as a cosigner, that's going to take your score down.
Okay.
So maybe you may not want to do that initially. Maybe you want to help them, pay that card down.
Pay it off.
Help raise their credit card. Yeah. Then pay it down or pay it off, take, head it in the right direction. And that's, getting down to a zero balance. Have an emergency card. You want to have a credit card. You always want to have a credit card. You don't want to do a hotel room using your debit card, using your cash or whatever. You want to, you want to rent a car or those type of things with, with your actual debit card. You want to use your actual credit card for that. And you don't want to have access to your cash. So with that said, is that we want to, look at all those things and all those factors, as far as adding someone onto it. But yes, eventually I would say, yes, you would want to add someone on.
So the strategy, the first thing that you would use as a strategy that you would suggest to couples when they're looking at combining their finances, one is to look at your credit.
Correct.
Right. The other thing is to look at what credit cards you have out there.
Correct. Absolutely correct.
And what's the third thing?
Well, savings account. See what they actually have in their savings.
Savings.
Yep.
Now, does that include just bank savings, or do you want to look at 401k?
Oh, 401k. I want to look at everything.
IRAs.
401ks, IRAs. You want to look at all those things. Anything that have to do with the savings is put aside. Anything you have access to, even if you're going to get penalized for getting it, anything you have access to grab hold of. So that's 401k and IRA. Those type of things, stocks, because obviously IRA, if you take that out too soon, you're going to get taxed on those dollars. So just be very mindful. 401k, some are that way too. 401ks, you can dip into them. You can use them as a, down payment on a house. They allow you to use it that way. So, that's a whole nother, conversation again. But yes, you want to
So strategies. So it's your credit report, credit card, savings that would include 401k as well as IRA and any stocks, bonds, or anything like that.
Correct.
Now, what about at that point? You should be putting life insurance on the table, whether you have any. Correct?
Yes, you want to put life.
Okay. What's another item that a person would bring to that conversation?
I don't know much more after the life insurance. The life insurance is definitely something you want to have because again, it depends on how much you owe on the home, how much debt there is. The life insurance is just not to bury you. You want to take care of the people's debts too as well if your name's actually on all that. So those are the factors that you need to be considering as well. So you need to be talking about what your debt is. So if you want to add that into it as well, definitely want to talk about what people's debts, what their debt.
So when you're older though, you may have property. So you should also bring in property, correct? What property you own?
But to me, that's part of stock. That's part of your other portfolio. So that would be part of your stock because hopefully
stock portfolio and property is one and the same.
Yeah, I would think you'd be making, hopefully it's making you money in some type of way. I guess
okay, but what if you like my portfolio is not property. I own the house that I'm in, but I actually own stocks, which is separate.
Right. Okay. But your home gains value though, correct?
No. But when we talk about portfolio, I just want to make sure people are clear.
Okay.
There's a difference between a stock portfolio and your property portfolio.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that's what, because Gerald, I'm sorry, you are a financial guru. All of us are not. So I just want to
I apologize. Right, and I apologize. Sometimes I'll say things and I'll catch myself.
I'm like,
so sorry. Right.
The average person doesn't know
Will
that.
me in, Chris. Will me in. That's all right.
The average person doesn't know that. Okay, so the thing is, like, one of the strategies is just basically, are you collecting that information over a period of time? Or is it just, babe, we need to sit down and talk. Can you bring these things to our conversation? Because, this is what happens, Gerald. If you're a person who has mismanaged a few of those things, you're going to be very apprehensive. So when I said about strategies, how would you approach? Folks, we've given you the list of things that Gerald is recommending that you bring to the combined finance conversation. But what strategy would you suggest a person use in order to have that conversation?
Very good question, Chris. Myself, I like just go ahead and hit it, hit you right between the eyes. Let's just have the conversation, period. Let's have the full conversation, because I don't want to get fully involved in you and, really all emotional into you. And the next thing you know, I'm finding all these things are, off to the left, and off to the right. It's like, wait a minute, we need to get, straight ahead. So it's really important to have that conversation really early in a relationship. I can't say a week, I can't say 2 weeks, I can't say a month or whatever, because again, I'm not going to.
Not a timeline, just how to approach it. Because I think for women, like, women are always very etchy about talking to a man about their finances. Right. Men are a little bit more direct sometimes. Yeah,
we are. We can.
So like, are you saying like make dinner? Is it a dinner involved, or it's just after work? Let's just put it on the table.
After dinner, it's an after dinner conversation. Okay. It's an after dinner conversation. You can do it during dinner, but it's a conversation that you need to be having, sitting down, really concentrating and digging into it. You start the conversation off, and then later on, you start pulling things out, start pulling documents out and kind of going at that. Won't happen initially. You just start speaking and you start having conversations, because initially somebody's just going to give you baby steps initially. And then we start pulling documents out. Oh yeah, by the way.
See, I'm glad you said it like that, because I think a lot of women, or just not women, but people in general who are very direct, they're going to bring their folders, and the other person may not be as direct, and it may cause a little tension.
Correct.
So, folks, the only thing I can tell you is listen to Gerald as it relates to know that it's going to be a long-term conversation. Something's going to happen over a period of time. Like Gerald said, you may start off talking about a vacation that leads into, do you have a savings account?
Right.
Do you have one?
Correct.
Right. Okay. Do you save for vacations, or do you just have a savings account?
That's correct. How do you pay for your vacation? Do you do you max out your credit card to go on vacation? Hello.
Now, I just want to tell you guys, the 5 F's to Love relationship card game will be in stores in another 60 days. Okay. You can always purchase that card game to ask these questions for you in a very nice and friendly way. It's going to ask you questions across 12 categories, and one is finance.
Nice.
And by the way, just we had a conversation, I think during last season, beginning of season 3, the last season, and we were talking about, if a person, you asked me a question, if somebody gave you $100, what would you do with it? And I was like, what is that question? You were like, well, it kind of tells me how you manage your money.
Sure.
So just to let you know, when you see that question in a card game, Gerald, you're right, I stole it from you. So what about it?
How dare you?
I stole it. Folks, we'll be right back after this commercial break. When we get back, we're going to talk about debt. Ooh, and combining your finances.
Oof.
I think it might be some deal breakers, Gerald.
All right, get a paper and pencil together.
Get your paper and pencil ready. We'll be right back, folks, after this quick commercial break.
Want it though? do I begin? I see the hate, they don't wanna see me win. Bank deposits, I got more coming in. Top down, throw the money in the wind. I don't want it all. Heard the scammer had to switch up the accounts. Moving paper, gotta call it my account. It's all in, I can have it coming out. They through the struggle, I can see another drought. Yeah, it's not a purse, it's a merge. 6 figures was a goal, now it's 9 or a hearse. Put it work. Used to pull up, not swerve. No time for the snakes, trying to put them in the dirt. That's word. I gotta get it, it's in my DNA. You only see the highlights, don't know what it takes. Last year stressing, got no sleep. Now I'm right between the courts, out of nosebleeds. Yeah, I see the hate, they don't wanna see me win. Bank deposits, I got more coming in. Top down, throw the money in the wind. I don't want it all. Heard these scammer had to switch up the accounts. Moving paper, gotta call it my account. It's all in, I can have it coming out. And through the struggle, I can see another drought. Yeah, same circles to the same gang. We just get to it, we don't gang bang. Lost some friends to the same thing.
Down, down, down. This shouldn't be us. What came between us? When did we become like them? We weren't supposed to break up, but it's too late to make up. Don't know if my heart will blend. No, this should not be us. Not be us. Not be us.
Okay, guys, we're back. And our conversations about combining finances, really, that's just the core of what we're talking about. And folks, we know this is a difficult conversation. That's why we got Gerald over here. Because if it was up to me, I just throw my stuff on the table and say, figure it out. But Gerald, listen, I know with you and talking to you over the years about finances, there is a difference between bad debt and good debt. So can you kind of give us some examples of bad debt versus good debt?
Well, one of the things we initially talked about was credit card. Credit cards, that's a bad debt. Credit card debt. It's fine to have a little bit of credit card debt, so that way you're showing you're able to pay it off on time to help build your credit score. So no problem with $2,000 or $3,000 maybe on that, and you're making your payments, but don't make the minimum payment. So it's bad, but also it's good at the same time. Good debt, obviously, to me, is your home. It's a tax write-off. There's not many things you can still write off. You get my age, there's no longer kids you can write off any longer. So a lot of things you're not able to write off, but you're able to write off things, when as far as it comes to your home, and then the home continues to, gain value too as well. So vehicles, bad debt. That Range Rover, I know it's nice to have that Range Rover, but as soon as you pull it off the lot, it depreciates. Anything that's going to depreciate, be very mindful of that. I mean, you believe it or not, the average car payment is like $800-900 a month.
Oh,
like, are you kidding me right now?
For a car?
For a car.
Okay, Gerald, I'm sorry. I get, because both of my cars are paid for, so I'm always like,
here. You know what I mean? It's like that doesn't make any sense. Like why? Who does it? Yeah, for a car.
That's a mortgage.
Yeah, that's absolutely a mortgage. There's people making $40,000 a year making those kind of payments. So they're indebted to their car.
Wow.
To the car just to ride around and cruise in the car. So to me, that's not a good investment. It's putting that much money into a brand new car.
Right.
There's nothing wrong. A year or two old, it's maybe has 20,000-30,000 miles on it. That's a good investment right there, because again, depreciation has been taken out of it already. So it's be very mindful of purchasing a brand new car. Like I said, nothing against Range Rovers and Mercedes and Porsches and all those things, but guys, trust me, paying that $1,300, $1,400, $1,500 more payment, I mean, outrageous.
That doesn't even include insurance, folks.
That has nothing to do with insurance, right? Absolutely right.
By the time you finish. So, Gerald, I know one of the biggest issues is understanding that household account and the separate savings account and all those things. What model, and I know there's no perfect model, you've said this before, but what model would you recommend when combining your finances that causes the least amount of tension in a relationship?
There's no problem with it. I know, right? No problem with having an account together. There's no problem with having an account separate for each one of you. So, if you want to contribute, and it depends on the household. It depends on who the breadwinner is, and if they feel comfortable putting all the money in and taking care of everything, then that's fine. Or if you're making close to the same amount of money, putting money aside. But if he wants to buy something or she wants to purchase something, you still should be having conversations, especially on major purchases. Like, just because you have your own account doesn't mean you go out and buy a car without discussing with me.
So when you say, are you still saying that there should be a home account, but you
Yes.
can still have separate checkings and savings, and then a group savings and a group checking?
Absolutely correct. And I didn't say that actual terminology. You're right. You need to have a household account, and there's you pay your bills and the mortgage and those type of things out. That really works well.
Right.
And it doesn't mean you're doing 50-50 with that either, Chris. So let me just make that clear either.
Okay.
You know, some maybe be contributing, maybe 30, maybe 30-60, maybe 60,
Right.
and maybe 50-50. It just depends. But at least you're contributing to it. And then for that person to still have a little bit of independence as well, they can have their own separate account. I don't know what the savings account with. I don't personally agree with having a separate savings, because what are you saving for? I don't like how that looks. I don't understand. You need to have a group savings account. That savings. I shouldn't have a separate savings and she have a separate savings.
Well, let me ask you a question. I mean, what if you're a person who has grandchildren or something? That's still the group savings, or should that be a separate savings because you're saving to potentially take care of them for any particular reason, or children or whatever?
I have 5 grandkids that have 5 separate accounts.
So, okay, you have 5 separate accounts?
Yes, 5 separate accounts, with each one of their names on it.
Okay.
Right. You know what I mean?
All
So
right.
even if I'm not able to sock a lot of money in it, you have to remember time's on their side. Them being so young and throwing $50 or $100 in there, a month or something like that, over time, that's going to build itself up.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. I asked you that intentionally.
I know you did. So I just wanted to make sure again, I got to make sure I put it out there like that people.
Yes, because it's important, because like with you just getting married, that's important that people understand the difference between the joint household account, the checking account. But when I asked you about savings account, it was very particular to that, because a lot of people say, well, I have a savings account because I'm saving for something.
Right.
But from your perspective, your attitude is you can still save in a group unless it's for a specific, like your grandchildren or your children who are younger. That's different.
That's different. That's absolutely totally different.
Right.
My savings account, to me, savings account is rainy day. If something were to come up, if something were to happen, then we need to grab, $5,000-$6,000 out of it.
Right.
Then, because something major happened. And you need to have money put aside like that. But truthfully, you should have anywhere from 3 to 6 months of your income and your family income in your savings account. That's what you should be building towards having. That's the event that something were to happen for as a job is concerned, or if somebody got sick and couldn't work. Disability is only going to pay you 66% of your income. That's a disability policy. So, no matter who you work for or where you buy it, so how many people are living off just 66% of their income? I would say very little. So with that said, so with that said I said very little, Chris. So, anyway, so with that said, again, that's why you need to have that savings account. If something were to happen, then that money can help, with, as far as bringing.
You know what? I just want to say thank you to you. And I said thank you to the finance guys I really like the fact that both you're on Fridays and you don't talk about finances all the time. Your podcast is mostly about having those type of relationships for people who are between 55 and 60 or 50 and older kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that those are real conversations. So I really appreciate you doing every third Friday on finances, because those are things, my Saturday guys, they talk about the overall high level kind of thing, but you're actually in on the weeds when it comes to combining that relationship finances.
Yes.
I mean, and folks, if you can get this together, then you can watch Saturday's show and figure out the rest of it. You know what I mean? So I just want to say thank you for that. People don't know that you're a financial guru on top of having that experience in a relationship. So, we talk about deal breakers, financial deal breakers. And folks, if you're looking at him smiling, because Gerald has them. And he was like, everybody should have financial deal breakers. But sometimes we leverage our emotional attachment to people to overlook that financial deal breaker, that later on down the line, that financial deal breaker impacts the relationship. And so like we'll go, oh, I'm not going to be with this person. If anybody has, $100K or whatever in debt, I'm out. But then you meet this guy and you like, girl, I'll help him pay it off. I'll figure it out. But then guess what? What you didn't realize is that he just wasn't great with managing money. So that 100K he walked in with behind your back, now it's even more. So that was a deal breaker. But what's your thing on deal breakers, folks? Now that I've given you like the background to this deal breaker question.
That bad debt thing we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
6 or 7 maxed out credit cards. Really? Yeah. And you're making minimum payments. Really?
So, Gerald, how long does it take you to pay off a credit card on minimum payments?
35 years.
I knew you knew the answer.
35 years, really? So 35 years, you have to pay that same payment, that minimum payment? No, not at all. And you have 5 or 6 and you max them out. So again, that's not cool. That's not, you talked about the good debt, versus, bad debt. That would be a bad debt and a deal breaker. Because again, I'm not coming into that picture. And, a macho thing too, for us men is like, all right, who'd you purchase that stuff for? And then here I'm helping you pay it off. Really? Sorry, that's not happening.
What did you say? I'm not paying off somebody else's suit.
I'm not paying somebody else's suit off. You know what I mean? You got Men's Warehouse, what do you have a Men's Warehouse credit card for? Because you bought them a bunch of suits or whatever, and now I'm supposed to help you pay that off? No, that's not happening.
Okay, so your deal breaker is what? You're not paying off debt that you accumulated
from your past relationship. That's all. That's my deal breaker. I'm not paying your debt off.
Deal breaker.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so ladies, you're probably going to run across quite a few men who are in Gerald's spectrum about paying off debt that you've accumulated with another man. So think about that. Right. And then, so Gerald, my next question to you, if a person has between 40K to 100K in debt, would you still move forward in that combining, like in that couple's financial planning, or would you ask them to kind of resolve that first?
Well, resolving if 100K is not going to happen right away. So that's probably a deal breaker. But again, it depends on what that debt is. If it was school and you got a master's and a doctor, and then, then that's a no-brainer to me. We're going to work on that thing together. Hopefully, your career is going to pay you enough to help us pay that down. That's not a problem at all. Same with the 40K. If that's credit cards, then you know what? That's probably a deal breaker. That's probably they're like, no, I'm not paying 40K in your credit card debt. That's
so you make me laugh every time you go, that 40K, if it's a credit card, I'm out.
And paying minimum payments. That's what I'm saying. If you're paying additional, you're paying $1,000 a month or whatever to pay that off, you realize like, all right, I'm in a better position and I need to be taking care of that. Then I'm asking that $1,000. Here I'm doing the math already. I'm doing $1,000 a month. We're going to be together how long, and where are we in our age group? And okay, they'll have it paid off in 3 years, 4 years, 5, or 2 years, or whatever the case may be. So you want to add that up and say, okay, and then they're able to help contribute a little bit, because remember, we're helping to the household as well. So household, income, household account, savings account, checking account, those type of things. So I'm saying, okay, $1,000 a month, 3 years. Okay, I'm good. $1,000 a month for the next 10 years. No, I'm not good with that. So those are the things you need to be adding up. Those are the factors you need to be considering. Because again, I know they said love, whatever, but you know what? Before you even fall in love, deeply in love, you should already know these things.
I found the song, Love Will Find a Way. That's the song.
Love will find a way. You're right.
It just hit me. That's the one that go, well, love might not find a way through this financial situation.
No, not for that particular situation. Exactly. And I know, like, we're talking money and talking debt, but these are real conversations, guys. You got to really understand that they're deal breakers with people.
Right.
Because what happens, a lot of this stuff is hidden. Like Chris was saying earlier, you're hiding it, and next thing you know, it pops up and you're like, oh, wait a second, that's not cool. So what else are you hiding? Because that's what the mindset's going to be, is what else are you hiding from me?
I was going to say that.
So put everything out on the table, put your debt and put everything out on the table and work at it. You may find out somebody that loves you enough to say, you know what, I'm going to help you with that. And you had no clue that you're ever going to meet somebody like that. I had no clue I'm going to pay this $40,000 off this quick. But if the $40,000 is something from just a student loan or whatever, then, baby, I got you. Let's go ahead. Let's do this thing. You're like, whoa, all right now. Here we go. So now we can go ahead and move on with life.
We're going to go to a quick commercial break. But so we're clear, if you did not understand what was communicated during this segment, you can always rewatch it on YouTube. Please. Because I'm going to tell you what we just covered in debt. The two things that will break up a relationship is money and your sex life. Right. So right now, the money thing is what we're talking about. Right. So trust and believe. I've seen a lot of relationships, Gerald. I'm sure you have that's just going south.
South. Truly
On this, because the surprises
alone. Correct. The surprises, like I was just saying, the surprises, surprise, in this 40, I know I keep messing with the 40,000 number, even maybe 30, if it's 30 bad debt, it's like, wait a second. So have that conversation initially, but it's the secrets, so that's getting into the relationship part of it is don't have secrets. Put it out there, and then maybe, like I was saying before, maybe he or she will help you, pay that debt off.
Right.
Maybe you work that out. So, get the secrets out the way, and then move on. But again, if it's a Men's Warehouse, then keep that one a secret. Keep moving on.
Ladies, you better get a second job in this Men's Warehouse. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break.
Look at me, I'm on. 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 Can't stop, keep going. Can't stop, keep going. Can't stop, keep going. Can't stop, keep going.
Yeah. Okay. Hold up. Yeah. I'm chasing a bag, I'm racing the clock. Look at them block, watching them flop. Used to see this in my sleep. When I ain't had shit on my thoughts in the car, I really was lost. Now I'm public with the soundscapes. Niggas floss, I'm really pulling strings for the pound cake. I see you went for a puppet in the clown face for a little wage. That shit the talk of the town is late. Still me, I never switch sides. Came a long way with the gas tank running on.
Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.
Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.
Loving how you wind up for me. Tonight is all on me. Mash up the place for me. Yeah, yeah. She just wanna highlight. Ooh, that body talk to me. I need a taste, baby. Loving the way you move around me. No more delay. No, you can't wait to shut it down. Won't you show me how you work it? I can't find no flaws, you perfect. Cause every time that you come around my way, I keep falling again. I keep falling again. And every time that you come across my mind, I keep falling.
Hey guys, if you're just tuning in, you know it's Friday and it's 60s and 40, and we have Gerald Robinson. Gerald, you know what? I'm going to thank you for having this conversation. I think this is a very difficult conversation people have about combining their incomes. Sure. So, as always, you guys know his sister never misses a show. And she said communication, yes, we have had separate bank and credit accounts for 35 years. We own property together and we know our collective net worth, but never let a daily transaction issue become stressful. You know what? That is so true because like you said, a lot of people, they use credit cards and they overuse them. Or they're buying these expensive vehicles, or it could be anything. I know women and men who take these quarterly trips with their bros and sis. Mm-hmm. And it's like, dude, you are traveling all over the country. Not only are you, going to these away kind of getaway things, but then you're putting all this stuff on credit cards.
Right.
While you're doing it. So that could cause a little stress, I'm thinking, in a relationship.
Sure can.
I'm this
thank you, sis.
Right here. Go ahead.
Thank you, sis. I was telling sis, thank you.
Oh yeah, she's outstanding. So grandparents caring for their grandchildren full time, how could that impact retirement or combining your finances?
Wow, it truly can, because again, it depends on how young the grandkids are. I mean, we may be paying for daycare. You know how expensive daycare is. I wasn't planning on that. Yes, I'm making more money now. I feel like I'm a little bit more stable, but at the same time, I think daycare is like 150 a week, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I'm mistaken. That's like, whoa, wait a minute, 150 a week. I didn't plan on that. We're looking at, what, 600 a month, somewhere in that neighborhood. It's like, no, I'm not, I had no clue. So that can be a deal breaker. Again, when you meet someone, you need to consider that too as well. It's like, and then also, your free time, because you get at a certain age, you just want your free time and you just want to be with that person you're with. I don't want to be changing diapers or, still doing, kid things at that age. It's okay to do with grandkids and they come spend the weekend or spend the week and do all that. But at this point, it's like, okay, go ahead, guys, go back to mom and dad. Even though I would love to have my grandkids all the time, but there's things that come with that too as well.
Wow. Okay, so that's fair. So then when you look at caring for a parent in that expense, how can that impact combining your financial planning?
Oh, truly can totally impact your household big time. Because again, hopefully you're able to get some care, some assistance, in doing that. But if not, if the parents didn't put any money aside for, long-term care or things like that, long-term care is another conversation that you actually want to have. You talk about life insurance policies, at your age, you want to maybe get a long-term care policy that's actually going to cover you, but back to the question at hand is, as far as the parent, expense, that can be expensive. Those things can be expensive. And it also digs into your family life, because again, now all of a sudden you need to spend that time taking care of that parent,
right,
with that parent and all that in that time as well. Hopefully, the person you're with is not selfish enough to realize that, your parents didn't ask to get sick. Your parents didn't ask to do that. So something like that would have come up. You would hope that they would have your back like that and step up and step into that and take themselves out of that situation and say, you know what, we need to help take care of your parents, because it can go vice versa. It can be perfectly fine now, mine not. And then all of a sudden, now all of a sudden yours not. Now you would have to step in. So, be very mindful of that. When you do meet someone and you meet the parents, just realize that can happen, and just
that's more common now, especially
common.
when you're with someone who's between the ages of 50 to 65. That happens.
Correct.
So those are the things you definitely want to take a look at, because it does impact. So when you think about overall, when you're planning for your retirement, when the other has not started, what is the first step to getting back on track? So you meet somebody, they haven't started planning for retirement, but you are like, I could retire tomorrow.
And you're speaking of my age group and you're just starting retirement, that's scary. That would be scary. Basically what I'm saying is that, if you're 50 and you haven't put money aside yet for retirement, that's, you're basically going to be looking at doing Social Security. You're going to be working for a while. That's what's going to be your income when you decide to retire, or you're going to be still working at 75 and 80 years old, a full-time job in order to make ends meet. But at the same time, again, are your needs the same when you get older? It's one of the things that I talk about, and Don and I talked about, are our needs going to be the same, when we get older? Do we still need to live, in this home? Do we still need a house this size? Maybe not. Maybe we need to downsize and start liquidating a little bit. So maybe that'll help towards the retirement too as well. But now you come together, and maybe that person wasn't able to afford to put money aside at that time. Maybe start helping out. But that's why we talked about it initially, Chris. This whole conversation is talk about it from the beginning. Have this conversation initially, so I'll know what your financial situation is. If that we do start need to put money aside or a 401k for you, then you can start doing that. Maybe you couldn't afford to do a 401k at your job. Maybe you were just, like I said, you were spending, full income. You weren't able to put $100 aside. A lot of people may say $100, what's that? Some people $100 is a lot.
It is.
Yeah. And they're not able to do it.
So, I think too, when you get to a certain age, you're talking about managing multiple properties and, you're talking about combining incomes. But one of the things that I think, like when my parents got married, my dad owned a lot of rental property, right? All over the city. My mother didn't own property. And so the expense when they did their taxes for the first time together was huge. Like it takes you to a different revenue level. And she was like, what you mean we're not? I'm used to getting money back. What you mean we're not getting money back? You got to pay taxes on that property. But the thing is, if my mother wasn't the person she was, I think that could have broken them up.
It sure could have.
She was just so kind of passive about it. Like, okay, well, next year, now that I know, let's figure this out for next year. Do we need to file separately? Because I'm used to getting a check back. But the thing is, Gerald, people don't understand when you own property, it takes you to a different tax bracket because it counts that as revenue.
Absolutely correct. It counts as
Yeah.
revenue. So that's what I was saying earlier. It counts as revenue. So no, it's not your stock portfolio, but it does count as revenue that you're gaining value on that. So, same way with CDs, you're gaining value. Anything you get interest and you gain off of it,
Right.
you have to claim that as income. So again, be very mindful and careful of the things that you want out there, because a lot of people say, "Oh, I love that property, I love that." There's things that come along with that. So be very careful. Like your mom was saying, "Wait, man, I'm used to getting a check back." I mean, hold on now. Where's this?
Look, Joe. Not only did you didn't get a check back, you had to write out a check.
Hey, I've seen a lot of $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 checks go out to IRS this year. Coming to the bank, they're like, "Whoa, I've never seen this happen. What's going on here?" So are you ready for it? Are you ready for a hit like that? Are you ready for a hit for $8,000, $10,000 bill from Uncle Sam? That can happen. But as you grow, that's what's going to happen. As you grow and as your net worth grows, Uncle Sam wants part of that net worth. So just don't think all of a sudden I'm making 500,000, 600,000, or I have $1.5 million in revenue. I have, and that's what my assets are. Guess what, guys? Uncle Sam's want a part of that. So it's nice to look and say I'm worth 1.5 million. I'm worth 1.7. This is how much I have in assets and all that. Guess what? Uncle Sam wants about 8, 9, 10,000 of that.
Right.
So
and I'm glad you said that. I think a lot of times, especially when couples get together, like you said, you're making the highest amount of money you probably made, right? Salary wise. And you don't understand it. When you get together, it takes you to a different tax bracket.
It does.
So you have to start looking at how can offset all of this extra revenue.
Right.
And people don't think about that. So I think, Jordan, I'm not trying to throw your little shows out there, topics, but I think we need to talk about offsetting.
Okay.
Offsetting combined revenues, because people, honestly, that's something that I didn't think about until I started talking to you in the finance squad. Because I'm thinking to myself, well, hey, if I hook up with somebody, wait a minute now, that's going to take me way above where I'm at.
Absolutely.
And the IRS is coming on us.
He's coming after you, right? And it looks nice when you initially meet him. You're like, wait a minute, now he has that and all that, and I have this, and you combine. You're like, whoa, we're going to do all right. Nah, Uncle Sam's coming. He's knocking on your door. He's going to have a conversation with you. He's like, wait a minute, I need some of that revenue.
And the tricky thing that somebody said to me is so funny. You always think to yourself, oh, I own this. I don't want to have to do this. But what people don't understand, when you make a certain amount of money, it's always great to get that house or that cottage. As long as you're paying, don't pay it off when you get that retirement house, or you buy property in a beachfront property and you're renting it out. Keep making those, because it helps you offset your salary.
Absolutely correct. Exactly. So you want to be very mindful of that. Also, insuring that money. A lot of people need to realize that 250,000 is your max, but if you add someone onto the account, that adds an additional 250. So now you're worth 500,000 is insured. So those are great conversations we actually need to have. And a lot of people, come into the bank and they're worried about, what do I do? I have $2 million. Am I adding grandkids onto the accounts? Am I adding uncles or brothers, or so this money's insured, or what do I do? So those are deeper conversations we can get into. But so be very mindful and careful when you decide to climb that ladder and you want to, all of a sudden making all this money, and you guys combine and you combine in 7 figures. It's like there's things that come along with 7 figures.
And that's why, folks, I'll tell you, I hate to say this in such a, probably say this girl has all these degrees. I have a lot of degrees. I will give you that, but I'm not financial smart.
Right.
So that's why I have financial people who manage my money, so I can continue to do what I am an expert in. And although I can teach mathematics, all of them, algebra, trigonometry, calculus, I'm still not finance smart. So I know the basics, but like Gerald said, when you get to a certain point, you really need a financial advisor to sit down and talk to you. And those are the people who always say are the boss of me, because you need this guy to tell you what to do.
And don't think you need to have 7 figures to talk to a financial advisor.
I'm glad you said that. Thank you.
Right. So no, you can talk to a financial advisor, 150,000, 300,000 in revenue. I'm not talking about income, but as far as you need to have that conversation. The small things, some financial advisors may not want to talk to you, but there's some that will have a conversation with you, about, small things that you need to do to change. Because if you're looking down the road, you're like, 5 years from now, I may be worth this.
Right.
Now let me start doing some things now so I can prepare myself from 5 years down the road. And I said, you 52 or 50, like I said, 60 at my age is like, wait a minute, that's 8 years. 8 years, you can gain a lot of revenue within 8 years.
Right.
So again, you need to have those conversations now, have them early. Have them very
and I think that's a great thing. So Joe, before we close out, I'm going to ask you the question that everybody wants to know.
Uh-oh.
Who manages those finances in a relationship, Gerald? Because why I ask this, because people automatically assume the man should do it. And
the best one, the best credit score, the best one that can handle this. How about that? Let's go back to that credit score thing again. You know what I mean? So that tells a lot. That credit score.
Joe, you said the person with the best credit score.
That's right. That's right. They've been managing. Like I said, you get my age, it's like, wait a minute, you've been manage things fairly well now. So why not? Why not trust them to do that? And have that conversation. It doesn't mean that they do everything without you sitting down having conversation. Right. Because in my house, Sunday conversation, you sit down and have a conversation about it.
You know what? And that is our last question for tonight is financial planning. Big conversation. Is that a monthly or quarterly conversation?
I think, well, it's quarterly, it's monthly, and it's also quarterly. Monthly, okay. You're not as deep into it. Monthly, quarterly, you're deep into it. It's a little deeper conversation. Monthly could be, having dinner. Sitting out to dinner and having a little slight conversation that, this is going on and, this is taken care of, or that bill went up a little bit more. So we have a little bit, more to spend out here, or we have a little bit less. So, to pay out. So we have a little bit more here. So that may be a monthly conversation, but a quarterly conversation is okay. All right, let's see what's the credit card look like. That debt going down. Are we paying that off? Right. And I want to be fair too. You know what I mean? Yeah, women aren't, paying a Victoria's Secret card off either. So I know
what did you call it?
A Victoria's Secret. No, I'm saying, remember I said Men's Warehouse.
Oh, I thought you said a secret card.
No, Victoria's Secret's card too. So I wanted to be fair about that earlier. I was thinking about
the women should be paying off the man's Victoria's Secret credit card.
Right. Exactly. So, that goes, or your Victoria's Secret with anyway, I won't get into it.
And you know what, that's fair too, because you're right. And Joe, before we go tonight, it is a tough conversation.
It is. I know it's one of the toughest conversations. I know we're trying to lighten things up about it.
Yeah.
Joking back and forth about it, but at the same time, it is a very serious conversation.
Yeah.
It is very serious. I mean, it's as serious as, as anything, as deciding to get married. I mean, a marriage is a big commitment. And the last thing you want to do is go into the marriage and debt be an issue. Your finances being an issue. Again, I cannot believe that people get married and you have no idea what your person's finances are like, or you don't even know what their income is. I just don't even understand it.
And that happens quite often.
Oh, it happens quite often. That's why I'm sitting here shaking my head. It's mind-boggling, that you would actually go into this relationship without even knowing someone's financial situation. You need to know what their financial situation is. It's so important.
So, Joe, let me ask you, do you think people avoid those conversations because they don't want to be alone and they want to be in a relationship, even though they in the back of their head, they're going, I know that money is not right. I know the money, but I just want to be with them.
Some people stay out of relationship because of that.
Mm.
Yeah, believe it or not, they stay out of relationship because they know that if somebody's doing well and you met them and man, she looks so nice or he looks so nice and he's got things together and I have an opportunity to be with them.
Right.
You're not going to put everything into it because like, wait a minute, they got a lot going on with themselves. And I know on this side that, all right, I owe $40,000 in debt and credit cards. It's just not going to happen. They're not going to be very happy about that. That conversation. So again, have the conversation because you may not know he made $50,000. He may look like he's doing well or she's doing well. They may end up having the same thing. So that's why I said, again, have those conversations. I've been in finance for 30 years. I've seen every part of the spectrum. I've seen them all over the place. I've seen the 50,000, I've seen 200,000 in credit card debt, which is unreal, which blew my mind. You can actually have 200,000 in credit card debt. I didn't know it was even possible.
Is that possible?
Yeah, it is. Early in my career. Yeah. So the doctor made big money. So credit card companies kept giving it to him and it ended up maxing them out.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't think about it from that perspective.
So that can happen. So again, you think, that person has it going on, you meet them and you're like, oh, man, I got 20,000 on debt, not knowing that they have 100, 200,000 in debt.
Right.
So again, have this conversation, and but love can't conquer all that, Chris. Sorry.
Honey, that song, don't play that song. I think it's going to conquer it all. Folks, I'm going to tell you, I really enjoyed this episode with you, Gerald. I mean, it is a hard conversation to have. And Gerald, like Gerald said, we're not making light of it.
No.
But we wanted to have it in a light tone because it is so serious.
It is so serious.
But the thing is, guys, I want you guys to watch this. If you want to have a conversation with a person you truly, truly care about, get your notebook out. Watch this a couple times. Like Gerald said, start out light. Don't go in real hard. Okay? Just kind of ask questions like, we're going on vacation. Do you have a savings? Right. If we were buying a car, will we just go buy it or will we save up to buy the car? Right? So ask, do you get new cars every year? Yeah. Those are questions you can ask.
Yeah. They're little questions. You're right, Chris. There's still those little things out there.
They add up.
And then you'll see how that person wants to open up to you. And I mean, so you throw a little bit out and then they open up a little bit more and a little bit more. So again, a lot of people are not comfortable having that conversation. We said that earlier, not comfortable talking about my finances or what my income is, just meeting you, we just don't know. Even after knowing you for a year or so, you may see what their lifestyle is.
Say that again, Gerald, even after a year or so.
Oh yeah, because you may see what their lifestyle is, but what you need to know how much money I make. I go to the restaurants and I'm paying for the dinner. I send you flowers, I knew do all that, but you don't know I make, X amount of dollars.
Right.
You have no clue of that, but I think maybe we should get married or see how much money you make. I have no clue. Or can we afford a house? The person may not have a house. Can we afford a house and we get, putting this income together? Are we going to be able to do that? This conversation is a whole lot deeper and we have to continue it on. So if you're watching this, please, we're going to continue this one. We're going to have this conversation again because it's a whole lot deeper than just the things that we talked about here today. We just skimmed the surface today.
And I would love for you to do one on imposter syndrome. People think it's a personality trait, but it's a financial thing. And men and women both are perpetrators of this.
They sure are.
And I call them the great pretenders.
Good one.
And you end up hooking up with the great pretenders and you feel, you're like, wait a minute, this is your friend's place? You don't even own it? No. The car is leased?
Right.
What is happening? Like you're like surprised.
You're
so
totally
the thing
surprised.
is, folks, that's a whole the imposter syndrome. I call them the great pretenders. Drew, I would love for you to do something because in our age bracket, like you said, if you're going through divorce, you got the debt, a lot of that great pretender thing could be there because you're paying off the debt, but you still want to look like you're still living at the same level that you were when you were married.
Correct.
I mean, how about people buying houses when you go to them, there's no furniture in it? They're empty.
No furniture. They're house poor. They call them house poor. People can afford just the house.
They're house poor. They just want to live in a certain neighborhood. They have a bedroom set and a kitchen.
And that's it. Not much in the kitchen at all. And God forbid you go in the refrigerator.
Right.
There's not much.
So those are the imposters and the great pretenders. I would love to have that conversation. Gerald, as always, you always make Fridays really awesome for me. So, folks, thanks a lot for joining us here on 60s New 40 with Gerald Robinson. And we will see you guys next week. Gerald, thanks again. You have a great weekend.
All right. You as well. Bye, everyone.
All right.